Welcome back to the program. The ceasefire in Ukraine appears not just to be holding, but the country is making efforts to stabilize the region. In line with the September the 5th ceasefire agreement signed by President Petro Poroshenko, Ukraine's parliament has granted self-rule to eastern regions controlled by pro-Russian rebels, as well as an amnesty for the fighters themselves. The amnesty affects rebels in Donetsk and Luhansk regions, but does not cover the shooting down of the MH17 passenger plane in July. The European and Ukrainian parliaments have also voted to ratify a major EU-Ukraine association agreement. The rebels have been battling Ukrainian government forces since the seizure of eastern regions bordering Russia. Moving on now, both sides in the Scottish independence referendum debate have seized on a pledge by the three main Westminster parties to devolve more powers as the council decided whether or not to stay a part of Britain. The pledge signed by David Cameron, Ed Miliband and Nick Clegg also promises equitable sharing of resources and preserving the Barnett funding formula. The Yes campaign described it as an insult to voters and asked why it had taken so long to offer.
In just 2 days, Scottish residents will make one of the most momentous decisions in their country's history, whether or not to break away from the United Kingdom. Many economists believe Scotland could do it alone. But the question is, should it? Supporters of independence argue that Scotland, which has its own parliament and judicial system, but lacks substantial tax-raising powers, would be freer, better governed and richer on its own.
If the Scottish Parliament had the powers over taxation, welfare, we'd be able to redistribute Scotland's immense wealth. You know, we have 60% of the EU's oil production. We have 25% of the EU's wind and tidal wave potential. We have some of the world's top universities. We have a booming life sciences sector and a food and drink sector. We've got what it takes to be an independent country, but we need to have the power in the Scottish Parliament to redistribute Scotland's wealth and create a fairer country.
The No campaign argues Scotland would be unable to keep the British pound, that tens of thousands of jobs in the defence and financial sectors would be at risk, and that an independent Scotland might find it hard to rejoin the European Union. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister David Cameron implores Scots to vote no to independence in Thursday's referendum, saying that a yes vote would tear the country apart forever.
And it's my duty to be clear about the likely consequences of a yes vote. Independence would not be a trial separation. It would be a painful divorce. And as Prime Minister, I have to tell you what that would mean. It would mean we no longer share the same currency. It would mean the armed forces we've built up together over centuries being split up forever. It would mean our pension funds being sliced up at some cost. It would mean the borders we have would become international and may no longer be so easily crossed. It would mean the automatic support that you currently get from British embassies when you're travelling around the world, that would come to an end. It would mean over half of Scottish mortgages suddenly, from one day to the next, being provided by banks in a foreign country. There's no going back to the way things were. A vote for no means real change.
He's not the only one wading into this yes or no decision. The Queen, who has been quiet on the matter, recently reportedly urged Scotland to think about their decision carefully.
Joining us to talk about the economic implication, among other things, of the Scottish independence is an economist, Bismarck Rewane. He joins us via telephone. Thanks a lot for joining us on the program.
Yes, good evening, Joshua.
Oh, thank you.
I think the discussion today about the request or the referendum on Scotland pitches the establishment against a revolutionary thought. Britain is a very it's a society that is rooted in tradition and is very conservative. I cannot see under any circumstances how the yes vote is going to win the referendum on Thursday. Even though there's a demographic and generational shift, but the reality is that Britain was the head of the Commonwealth, the empire on which the sun never set. The United Kingdom is important. It is rooted in its history and its tradition, and it's very unlikely that this will change. What will change, though, is that because of the closeness of the vote, you are going to see a lot of devolution and delegation of powers to the Scottish National Assembly. Therefore, there'll be a lot of areas where there'll be semi-independence rather than independence. But as you can see the effect on the pound, you can see what the big banks are saying that they're going to move. Their jobs are going to be lost, and the economy is going to go into a tailspin. I don't think that is true, but the scare tactics are so high, and the hype is so much that I do not think that it is likely that you're going to see a yes vote.
You know,
definitely. Oh, no, so sorry. That the United Kingdom is not going to disintegrate. Scotland is going to remain a part of the United Kingdom. And for Nigeria in particular, we have about 7% of our international trade with Britain.
Right.
The Scottish part of the British, the United Kingdom does a lot of oil transactions. The Dundee, the Aberdeen, and all those other areas do a lot of business with Nigeria. But the world is moving towards regional integration rather than regional disintegration. The question is that if Britain had joined the European Union, this question of Scotland breaking away from the United Kingdom would not have even arisen. So the reality is that I think that as time goes on, there'll be more and more regional integration rather than more and more regional disintegration.
Let me come in here quickly.
Come on.
All right.
Right.
As you've seen in my report, a lot of Scottish businessmen are very optimistic that they're able to create jobs for their people, that this is the best way to go. What do you make of that as an economist?
No, I think in economics we have what we call the economies of scale. The bigger the pie, the more efficient, the lower the average cost, and the more efficient the economy is. So big is always better than small in economics. And that is why the European Union was better than each of the independent nations. The United States was better than each of the independent members of the Commonwealth of the United States. The ECOWAS will be bigger than Nigeria or any of the other countries. So as you go along, regional integration brings its opportunities, it brings its challenges, but the world is a better place the bigger the market. So if you fragment the market of the United Kingdom into Scotland and England, you will find that, first of all, not much will change, but it's just going to be much more difficult to administer, and the cost of doing this will be, onerous. I believe, and we will talk about this on Thursday and Friday when the vote is over.
Absolutely. So we just have to wait.
Vote, but I can assure you that the United Kingdom will remain the way it is.
I like your optimism about this issue, but also we cannot rule out the fact that even Scotland itself, Scottish people, they want this separation. Well, about 50% of them want this separation. About 42 of them do not want it. 1% or thereabouts are undecided. Let's weigh the good and the bad side of this separation. What is good about this separation and what is not so good about this separation?
What is good about it is that if you look at the history of the United Kingdom, how many times has a Scotsman become the Prime Minister by the ballot? Typically, there are all sorts of issues there that the Scots feel there's what we call ethnic nationalism and all that. They want to be their own, determine their own self-determination and their own destiny. So that's what it's all about. But their destinies are intertwined. The Scotsman and the Englishman are intertwined. There will be differences and all that. They have a common border. They have a lot of. They have the same currency. The institutions. In fact, Scottish institutions are much stronger than English institutions.
Which is the reason why you think they should pull out, because they can actually run their own affairs.
They can run. The point is that if you cannibalize the country into small bits, each of those small bits will be less efficient than put together. It's like, why is Nigeria not breaking up into different parts? Everybody talks about the destiny of Nigeria is intertwined because the bigger the market, the bigger the economy, the more investors want to come in. If you fragment it, you're going to have all sorts of problems. And besides, London is the financial center, one of the largest financial centers in the world. Why you don't want to, you don't want to undermine that opportunity.
All right. So I would love to let you go, but I'm getting questions from here that what will be the implication of international businessmen with this country, Britain, if ever there's a split?
if there's a split, the first reaction is that I don't think the world is going to come to an end. It's going to undermine the British presence, its global competitiveness. I think that, there'll be some shifting around. But in the end, just like Northern Ireland, like the other parts, there's a common language, there's a common tradition, and you would see that the damage which is being talked about may not happen as much as it is, but definitely Britain as a country will be less competitive than it is today if it's fragmented.
And that wouldn't go down well with a lot of business
Absolutely
people
not.
around the world.
Investors will not like that.
That's right. Thanks a lot for
But I
joining
can
us.
assure you that on Thursday you'll find that Britain will still be together.
Okay, I'll take your word for it, and I'll keep my eye open for whatever comes out of that referendum. Thanks a lot for joining us, Bismarck Rawani, an economist. Thanks a lot. Let's move on now to this rather controversial story. Police in Los Angeles are conducting an internal investigation over accusations that officers violated a U.S. actress' rights by handcuffing and detaining her. Daniel Watts, who appeared in Quentin Tarantino film Django Unchained, refused to show identification and walked away from officers responding to a report of a bad conduct. In a statement released over the weekend, police said its officers had responded to a report from a passerby that a couple were indecently exposed inside a silver Mercedes. Well, in an interview on Monday, Watt said she and Lucas, her boyfriend, were only making out in the car, were fully clothed, and that nothing improper had taken place. Finally on the program, well, 130 divers from 16 countries participated in the ALET Red Sea underwater photography competition last weekend, which this year focused on an attempt to break a world record for the largest underwater live stream audience. The diver photographers competed in various photography categories, including Best 5 Photos, Fashion Photos, Fish of the Year, and Amateur Photography. Take a look.
Breaking a world record for the first underwater live stream audience was more challenging than it sounds. It took about 130 divers from 16 countries. The ALET Red Sea underwater photography competition is one of its kind. It was live streamed on YouTube to tens of thousands of viewers around the world. During the contest, diver photographers competed in various photography categories, including Best 5 Photos, Fashion Photos, Fish of the Year, and Amateur Photography. But did this really set a new world record? The organizers said they will wait for information regarding the number of live stream views in order to establish whether a world record has been set or not. According to an official press release, Israeli diver photographer Eyal Cohen won the Best 5 Photos category, and Japanese photographer Yuzuru Masuda won the Fashion category.
Dive down, sit around, smile to the camera, enjoy the party, and we cover all this with the umbrella of safety.
The general manager of Eilat Dolphin Reef, Nir Avni, also said the strictest standards of security and safety were implemented during the competition. On the sidelines of the competition, 200 divers, some of them carrying Israel's flag, posed for a group photo near the sunken Israeli Navy boat, which currently serves as a diving site, the organizers said.
Well, this is amazing. What more can I say? Everyone is saying this is really amazing in the studio. Well, that's the program today. Thanks a lot for staying with us. I am Adeshawa Josh. Coming up next is Sports at 6.